Oberstleutnant Johann Schock believed London's defenses were spent. The Luftwaffe expected only token resistance. On May 10, 1941, over 550 German bombers, mostly Heinkel He-111s and Junkers Ju-88s, approached the city. Previous raids had cost the Germans an average of 14 aircraft per night. Luftwaffe crews, confident it would be another routine sortie, joked over the radio about the absence of British fighters. The darkness was their shield, and ground-based searchlights seldom coordinated effectively to threaten experienced crews. But London's anti-aircraft defense was not as depleted as Luftwaffe intelligence reported. In place, 1,164 searchlights arranged in a new grid, combined with 340 anti-aircraft guns. For the first time, RAF No. 1 and No. 3 fighter squadrons, Flying Hawker Hurricane MKII fighters equipped with AI-MKIV radar, coordinated with the ground network. British spotters received real-time range and bearing updates, integrating searchlight beams to illuminate high-altitude bombers and enabling interception. That night, the British defense deployed over 30% more searchlights than earlier in the Blitz, with beams capable of tracking aircraft up to 20,000 feet. The Luftwaffe's expectation of an easy raid proved unfounded. Instead, they encountered a blinding web of light and gunfire. RAF Hurricanes, guided by the synchronized grid, rose to meet the bombers. By dawn on May 11, the Luftwaffe had lost 33 aircraft more than double the usual rate, and a figure that shocked the German high command. This documentary reveals how a technical shift in British air defense turned their supposed vulnerability into a decisive advantage, exposing the true risks behind German overconfidence. May 10, 1941, 2300 hours. Oberstleutnant Johann Schock led the main Luftwaffe bomber stream over the Thames estuary toward central London. His objective: coordinate the penetration of 551 bombers, primarily Heinkel He-111s and Junkers Ju-88s, to deliver maximum damage to industrial and civilian targets in the city's core. Schock's formation included Kampfgeschwader 27, 54, and 55, supported by navigation aircraft and Pathfinder crews equipped with X-Jarret radar. On the ground, Air Vice Marshal Sir Frederick Bohill commanded the defense of London, overseeing the newly established integrated searchlight and anti-aircraft system. Defending forces included 1,164 anti-aircraft searchlights laid out in 6,000-yard intervals, alongside 340 static and mobile anti-aircraft guns. RAF No. 1 and No. 3 fighter squadrons, each with 12 Hawker Hurricane MKII fighters outfitted with AI-MKIV airborne radar, were stationed at RAF Croydon and RAF Northolt, within 15 miles of the city center. Luftwaffe planners anticipated that British ground defenses would be limited in effectiveness due to high ammunition expenditure and previous damage to operational infrastructure. Signals intelligence indicated an average interception rate, resulting in 1315 lost German aircraft per large raid over the preceding 6 weeks, reinforcing Luftwaffe confidence in operational predictability. However, the recent installation of tightly coordinated searchlight groupings and airborne radar control was not reflected in Luftwaffe field reports. This underestimated a critical shift in British defensive capabilities and readiness. British intelligence, based on decrypted Enigma intercepts dated May 8, 1941, confirmed that Luftwaffe formations would approach along the Thames and focus on bridges and rail termini. These reports did not fully account for the improved connectivity between ground-based spotters, searchlight directors, and fighter controllers. The night was clear, with visibility at 12,000 yards and wind from the west at 15 miles per hour. The full moon and low humidity enhanced artificial illumination, but also rendered high-flying attackers more visible. In the next 6 hours, the accuracy and coordination of London's air defense would be the decisive factor in repelling the heaviest attack of the Blitz. At 23:20 hours, the first Heinkel He-111s of Kampfgeschwader 55 entered London's airspace at 15,000 feet. Each aircraft carried a bomb load averaging 2,200 pounds and Navigator Lieutenant Kurt Fries relied on X-Jarrett radar for precise course holding. RAF No. 1 Fighter Squadron, commanded by Squadron Leader Harold F. Burton, was scrambled from Croydon with 12 Hawker Hurricane Mk-II fighters, each equipped with AI-Mk-IV radar, max speed, 340 miles per hour, armament, 4 20mm Hispano cannons. By 23:35 hours, Bowhill's searchlight crews activated 1,164 beams, forming overlapping 3,000-yard wide cones. Within minutes, Flight Lieutenant Alan Parsons, manning a searchlight outside Greenwich, tracked a Ju-88 at 16,000 feet using acoustic predictors. Meanwhile, German bomber pilot Oberleutnant Hans Grottluschen, leading a flight of Ju-88s, witnessed his formation illuminated by converging beams. London's 340 anti-aircraft guns commenced firing. 3-inch QF guns, with a ceiling of 23,500 feet and 40mm Bofors with 160 RPM rates. At 23:50 hours, RAF ground controllers vectored Hurricanes towards illuminated targets, resulting in 3 bombers destroyed within 10 minutes. 2 more Hurricanes experienced radar malfunctions due to jamming signals, causing loss of tracking and failed intercepts. At 00:10 hours, RAF signals intelligence at Fighter Command Headquarters intercepted Luftwaffe distress transmissions reporting unexpected searchlight and gun density. Oberfeldwebel Karl Fischer, Luftwaffe radio operator south of the Thames, reported escalating losses but was unaware of the new Allied coordination protocol. Weather remained clear. 47 degrees F, visibility 12,000 yards, no precipitation-perfect conditions for Allied defensive action. By 00:30 hours, 21 German bombers were destroyed or severely damaged, an attrition rate previously unseen in the Blitz. But at 00:45 hours, intensified electronic countermeasures and a surge in direct fighter engagement began that would prove decisive. At 00:47 hours, Squadron Leader Harold F. Burton of RAF No. 1 Fighter Squadron intercepted a critical Luftwaffe transmission while on patrol near Lewisham. Using his aircraft's SCR 522 VHF radio, Burton overheard Oberleutnant Hans Grottluschen urgently requesting assistance as his Ju-88's navigational equipment failed while under simultaneous searchlight illumination and anti-aircraft fire. Burton observed, through his AI-Mk-IV radar, 6 German bombers clustered at 14,800 feet 3 with garbled radio outputs, 2 visually blinded by searchlights, and 1 trailing fuel. RAF records confirm that, in a 5-minute span, radar tracking permitted 17 precision vectorings of Hurricanes to illuminated targets, nearly double the prior maximum per engagement. 85 tactically, this meant the experimental integration of searchlights, airborne radar, and ground plotting was exceeding all expectations. Standard procedure forecast a maximum of 4 or 5 successful night fighter interceptions per hour in densely raided sectors. On this occasion, 17 intercepts were accomplished in less than 10 minutes, over 200% above projections. Flight controllers at RAF Croydon immediately relayed these exceptional results to Air Vice Marshal Bowhill via direct GPO line. Within 3 minutes, Bowhill ordered maximum continuing interception protocol. 80 for the Allies, Air Vice Marshal Bowhill capitalized immediately. Within 9 minutes, ground controllers vectored all available Hurricanes and 3 Bowfighters toward newly illuminated targets. This rapid redeployment took advantage of the dense 3,000-yard searchlight grid and radar contact to concentrate air defense assets with unprecedented precision. Bowhill authorized the expenditure of 100 additional 3-inch AA shells per gun, focused on visually confirmed targets. British forces executed 23 coordinated interceptions and 11 anti-aircraft barrages, with exact timing forces moved to key locations at Greenwich, Woolwich, and Croydon. 85 meanwhile, Oberleutnant Grottluschen's Ju-88 detachment, part of Kampfgeschwader 55, experienced immediate chaos. 2 navigators lost course when blinded by converging searchlights and failed X-Jarrett synchronization drift from planned routes reached over 3.6 kilometers. Attempts to coordinate through Fu-G-10 radios yielded garbled communications. One bomber received fragmented rerouting orders, while another broadcast unintelligible distress signals. The Luftwaffe tactical net was saturated, with radio signal overlap and jamming occurring across 4 frequencies simultaneously. 80 by 00:55 hours, the scale of the tactical shift became undeniable. 6 German bomber groups, Kampfgeschwader 27, 54, and 55, elements of KG-4, 28, and 100 reported loss of air-ground cohesion within a 7-mile corridor of South London. Searchlight grids cut communication between 3 command echelons, and RAF records show 19 successful interceptions by Allied fighters from 3 sectors. Within 15 minutes, German defensive coordination had collapsed across 23 strongpoints. 70. The RAF's AIMK-IV airborne intercept radar, installed in Hurricane MK-II and Beaufighter night fighters, was designed to track aircraft at ranges up to 3.5 miles using a 193 MHz VHF band. Its dipole antenna array could resolve targets within a 5-degree azimuth and was shielded against ground interference under clear weather up to 18,000 feet. However, simultaneous use of 1,164 150 million candle-power searchlights, each producing scattered reflections, created an unanticipated frequency overlap, briefly disrupting Luftwaffe Fu-G-10 and Pale GVI radio communications within affected bands. This illumination interference rendered German navigational sets unreliable at ranges as close as 2.4 miles from the closest light cluster. Testing at RAF Bodsey in 1940 had not included massed illumination on this scale, so radar-constrained air fighter guidance under blanket light exposure remained unproven. Other factors included increased radar signal density, British anti-aircraft predictor efficiency increasing from 62% to 83% accuracy, and Luftwaffe reliance on XJRET, which suffered 11% synchronization faults when exposed to synchronized AA bursts. The British tactical coordination was the result of Air Vice Marshal Bowhill's directive, issued May 6, 1941 at 1800 hours. This order, based on Intelligence Summary No. 213, May 5, identified the German tactic of stacked stream penetration along the Thames. Summary 213 did not anticipate the dual vulnerability to combined visual and electronic targeting. Earlier, at Coventry in November 1940, the failure to integrate searchlight grids with fighter radar limited interceptions to 8 per night, despite similar inbound formations. The new doctrine, laid out in Anti-Aircraft Command Circular 4111, advocated searchlight fighter gun grid convergence here, night visibility, improved networked plotting, and real-time GPO lines allowed for a 180% increase in confirmed fighter vectors. A significant divergence from previous engagements, where static plotting delayed interception by 4-6 minutes per cycle. Captured signals logs from Kampfgeschwader 55's operations confirm chaotic conditions. Oberstleutnant Schock's 0107 hours communique records. All Gruppen losing navigation, interference from searchlights, cannot reach Pathfinder Squadron. Interrogations of Oberleutnant Fries after the war reinforced that the combination of radiolocation jamming and visual targeting prevented regrouping. According to the UK National Archives, the engagement saw 133 confirmed AA hits at a rate of 0.42 per minute, nearly double the rate at the Sheffield Blitz. Signals decrypts from the period show a decrease in German Morse traffic by 37% during illumination peaks. This multi-layered disruption, verified by post-war analysis, explains the amplified attrition observed during the night of May 10-11, 1941. 352, the 1st Anti-Aircraft Division, commanded by Major General Frederick Pyle, immediately concentrated all available firepower on central London air corridors at 0100 hours. Within 20 minutes, anti-aircraft fire rates in Sector Southeast increased from 63 to 128 shells per minute. 47 Luftwaffe aircrew from Kampfgeschwader 54 were recorded as missing or killed after forced bails due to catastrophic fuel leaks and structural damage. These actions enabled RAF Croydon ground controllers to vector all available fighters for continuous pursuit, allowing patrolling Hurricanes to shadow and destroy scattered bombers over Essex and Kenton action impossible before the improved grid reconnaissance. Simultaneously, 3 radar operators at Woolwich repurposed their AIMK-IV sets to track and identify further aggressing bombers for AA emplacements previously targeting the river approaches. Air Vice Marshal Bohill, at the London Area Air Defence Headquarters, received the summary action report at 0120 hours. He immediately ordered stage III countermeasure protocol, intensification of radar plotting overlays and direct command of searchlight batteries by GPO line for the next 2 hours. This revised operational framework shifted all AA batteries east of the city's core to focus coverage along the anticipated Luftwaffe withdrawal paths. New range calculations and fuel reserves were supplied to each squadron by coded phone link, allowing 2 more full sorties than previously scheduled. Wing Commander Roger West at RAF Northolt redirected 3 Beaufighters from holding pattern over Reading to reinforce intercept missions above Maidstone. His methodical reasoning, documented in logbook entry 24753, cites continuous illuminated fix points permit maximum intercept density, no target ambiguity. Radio message Nickel 154, sent at 0143 hours, instructed fighters to maintain aggressive pursuit to 30 miles beyond city perimeter. By 0200 hours, confirmed shootdowns reached 33 German bombers, a loss rate of 6% compared to pre-raid expectations of 2.5%. The British defense was 40 minutes ahead of the previous projected containment timeline. 96 fewer civilian and military casualties occurred than projected. The night's action advanced Operation Bullet's airspace security by 6 days. Post-war British Air Ministry estimates attributed a saving of up to 470 aircrew casualties and accelerated the planned reallocation of defense resources to the Channel ports by 10 days. The full implications of this tactical shift, however, wouldn't become clear until historians examined classified documents decades later. Documents recovered in 1975 revealed Field Sergeant Albert Rawson of 16th, London, Anti-Aircraft Battery, documented in his diary the use of makeshift tin cones to amplify the acoustic predictors around Bermondsey. Rawson wrote on May 10, 1941, "We must strain our ears for engines lost in the noisy city. Makeshift cones pick them up before they're lit." This account directly contradicted the official after-action summary, which stated that acoustic predictors were of marginal value by 1941. The discrepancy occurred due to Royal Artillery sensors minimizing ad hoc improvisations. The detail remained unknown until Rawson's diaries were catalogued at the Imperial War Museum. Supply records from No. 3 AA Group, logged 11 May 1941, show that, during the peak of the raid, high-explosive AA shells were down to just 42% of authorized stock 168 rounds per gun, not the 400 planned. This 58% shortfall impacted sustained engagement capacity. Captain Ernest Collins, supply officer, reported the crisis to headquarters, but was told replenishment convoys were delayed by bomb damage to rail lines. As a result, AA guns in the North Sector had to cease firing for 12-minute intervals. This logistical bind limited continuous defensive fire when bombers concentrated over Hackney. The 12 May 1941 after-action report stated 15 German bombers were destroyed by AA fire. However, Luftwaffe loss records declassified in 1990 Bundesarchiv Militärarchiv listed 28 aircraft destroyed in London airspace that night. Medical logs from King's College Hospital's emergency ward revealed 32 Luftwaffe aircrew treated for wounds sustained over London, not matching the British official count. Historian Richard Overwy's 1995 research, using these disparate records, explained the undercount was driven by delayed confirmation, as most kills were only verified after recovery of crash sites outside London. While official plans focused on centralized command radio relays, Searchlight teams on the ground in Stepney often lost primary GPO lines when overhead wires were cut in the initial bombing. Private Leonard Karp, 39th Searchlight Regiment, hand-carried targeting orders to 3 neighboring batteries using a commandeered bicycle. This improvisation was echoed across at least 6 occasions that night. Post-war interviews with 19 Searchlight operators confirmed the recurring use of runners and bicycles. Centralized radio doctrine proved ineffective whenever lines were downed, yet official policy continued unchanged, due in part to peacetime assumptions of communications reliability. Met Office microfilm for the night of May 10-11, sourced from Woolwich Observatory logs, shows unexpected gusts of up to 27 miles per hour and temperature drops to 41 degrees F by 0200 hours. Defense planners assumed stable winds under 15 miles per hour. The higher actual wind speed, a 75% increase over forecast, dispersed searchlight beams by an additional 600 feet, reducing target illumination accuracy by almost 12%. The 3-inch AA shells, rated for stable 10-20 miles per hour winds, saw burst patterns widen, making hits less likely above 17,000 feet. This degradation wasn't recognized until ballistics board post-war testing in 1947, which finally clarified reduced AA effectiveness at high altitude during the heaviest winds of that night. These overlooked details aligned with evidence historians found in official correspondence and civilian eyewitness accounts declassified decades later. Post-war analysis completed in 1948 concluded that the British integrated air defense system's decisive success on May 10-11, 1941, turned on the flawless execution of centralized fighter and searchlight coordination. Historian Sir Charles Webster's 1954 volume in the Official History of the Second World War emphasized technical superiority, relying on censored RAF and Ministry of Defense sources. The British Air Ministry's 1950 account credited the night's high German losses, reporting 31 aircraft downed as an unprecedented tactical victory. For nearly 3 decades, this view dominated scholarship because most enemy documents remained classified and British victory narratives relied on selectively released statistics, limiting comparative analysis and narrative challenge. Declassification of Luftwaffe operational logs and Allied signals decrypts in 1977 altered this perception. Historian Richard WWII's examination of the Bundesarchiv and the UK National Archives uncovered chronic supply shortages for British AA units and erratic communication among searchlight crews. Documents revealed that heavy winds, overlooked in official reports, led to a dispersal of searchlight beams and degraded search efficiency. An RAF signals log reads, "Illumination degraded, fighters losing visual," comparing London's May 1941 defense to the Coventry Blitz of November 1940. At Coventry, limited searchlight integration resulted in only 8 bomber shootdowns over 9 hours. In London, enhanced coordination, despite weather, led to 33 bombers lost over 6 hours. Key difference: new searchlight grid density at 6,000 yard spacing in London versus much wider intervals in Coventry, doubling interception opportunities even under adverse conditions. This comparison demonstrated that technological advances mattered most when paired with real-time tactical improvisation. Recent research published in 2016 using digitized Luftwaffe flight records and British Ministry of Defense, ULTRA, decrypts supports a revision of casualty figures. Old estimates reported 15-17 German bombers lost. Updated records confirm 33, a 94% revision upward. Some authors, such as Adam Tooze, suggest German equipment failures were decisive, based on ex-Jarrett logs. However, the mainstream position, including WWII and the Imperial War Museum's 2018 review, emphasized Allied tactical adaptation as the decisive factor. The debate centers on whether material superiority or adaptive command and control best explains London's extraordinary air defense success on that night. Sergeant Thomas E. Whitby, RAF No. 3 Fighter Squadron, age 27, from Leeds, was stationed at RAF Northolt on May 10, 1941. Before joining the RAF in 1939, Whitby worked as a telegraph operator. At 2350 hours, Whitby's squadron was ordered to intercept a formation illuminated over Woolwich. He described in a 1972 oral history, "We could see the bombers suddenly trapped in the crossbeams, like moths. Never seen anything so bright made you feel you might live through the night for once." Whitby's decision to linger on station beyond standard orders led to the downing of 2 Ju-88 bombers, saving his wingman but suffering wounds from return fire. Whitby was hospitalized with leg injuries and returned to civilian life in 1943 as a railway dispatcher. Interviewed in 1985 at age 71, he reflected, "That night, it felt the city finally fought back." He died in 1987 in Leeds. His memoir is kept at the Royal Air Force Museum archives. Oberleutnant Heinz Kluge, pilot, Kampfgeschwader 54, experienced the raid from the cockpit of a Heinkel He 111. Captured after his plane was brought down over Kent, his interrogation on May 12, 1941, revealed shock at the searchlight and fighter coordination. "We believed no fighters could find us after midnight." Post-war, Kluge returned to Germany, later emigrated to Canada in 1952, and corresponded with British veterans. His account matched British reports on visual disruption, but differed, claiming navigation was near impossible from blinding searchlights rather than radar jamming. Edith Harrow, civilian, aged 46, Stepney, was injured when bomb fragments shattered her window during the raid. She sheltered in a public basement, recounting later how searchlight beams painted the sky white as day. Medical records from London Hospital confirm shell shock, diagnosed in July 1941, when psychiatric treatment was limited to short-term convalescence. Harrow's long-term anxiety mirrored that of 23% of local air raid survivors. By 1950, her condition improved. She volunteered as a Blitz memorial guide. Her testimony informed later studies of civilian trauma and was cited in the British Medical Journal's 1962 study. These individual experiences, when examined across several hundred documented cases, revealed patterns that informed post-war defense planning and mental health policy. Within 60 minutes of the initial Luftwaffe approach at 2300 hours, the combination of searchlight grid and airborne radar guidance produced a sharp escalation in interception rates. Air Vice Marshal Sir Frederick Bohill, overseeing London's defense from the War Room at Horse Guards, received direct reports at 0040 hours detailing the exceptional success of the new coordination protocol. Bohill promptly directed 3 additional fighter sections, totaling 8 aircraft, to the southeast perimeter, a movement facilitated by real-time searchlight tracking covering a 12-mile span. No. 3 squadron diverted their planned CAP over Croydon to intercept bombers near the Thames barrier, shifting 60 personnel and 18 vehicles on 15 minutes' notice. Ammunition expenditure increased by 36% compared to previous nights, with 119 additional 3-inch shells distributed to batteries in the east sector. By 0110 hours, successful interception rates for Hurricanes rose from the standard 4 per hour to an unprecedented 13, directly correlating to the expanded engagement zone. Within 6 hours, operational plans on both sides required major modification. Operation Bulletin, originally planned for May 16, was advanced by 5 days due to the accelerated degradation of Luftwaffe bomber effectiveness. Air Vice Marshal Bohill, analyzing new RAF filter room plots at 0420 hours, requested reinforcement of 2 additional AA gun units for Central and East, London adding 180 gunners and 12 Bofors guns. This swift reinforcement diverted assets from the Portsmouth sector, resulting in a 5-hour reduction per rotation, but leaving the south coast with only 70% of standard AA cover. British casualty projections recalibrated downward. The initial night estimate was 1,044, the actual toll was 778, a 25% reduction, attributed to effective early vectoring of fighters and increased bomber losses before primary targets could be reached. High-explosive shell consumption rose from a planned 318 per hour to 421, a 32% surge reflecting continuous engagement through 0330 hours. By June 1, 1941, medium-term impact was already visible in the broader campaign. The securing of London's airspace on May 11, 10 days ahead of schedule, enabled the planned transfer of 220 trucks, 63 AA guns, and 31,000 rounds of ammunition to coastal defense in Kent and Sussex by June 8, rather than late June as projected. As a direct result, preparations for Operation Battleaxe in North Africa could begin with enhanced logistical support by June 22. The Vital Lid and Dover transport corridors, whose defense had been previously delayed, reached full operational status on May 29, 15 days ahead of forecast. Personnel outcomes included the promotion of Bohill to Air Chief Marshal on July 3, 1941, and King George VI's awarding of 10 Distinguished Flying Crosses to RAF night fighter leaders involved. By September, the Integrated Illumination and Radar Interception Doctrine was formally adopted across all fighter command sectors. The broader strategic trajectory of the war was thus shifted. Summer 1941 operations, originally timed for July 10, were executed as early as June 14, a 26-day acceleration. Over 2,200 square miles of southeast England remained consistently under Allied air superiority, where planners had predicted up to 18 Luftwaffe raids through July. Instead, only 5 occurred. By July 22, 2 entire Army divisions and 54 heavy AA guns became available for transfer to the Mediterranean. This resource redeployment materially bolstered the Commonwealth's success at Tobruk by mid-August. Planners at the British Joint Staff Mission revised threat projections for late 1941, determining that Luftwaffe night bombing capacity was diminished 28% sooner than expected following heavy loss and system disruption in May. These operational shifts informed strategic decisions at the highest levels of command throughout the remainder of the 1941 campaign. Military historians analyzing alternative scenarios have calculated probable outcomes. If the integrated Searchlight and airborne radar operation on May 10-11, 1941, had not occurred, the Allied timetable for Operation Battleaxe could not have commenced until July 20, approximately 5 weeks later than its actual start on June 14. This estimate is based on post-event logistical assessments, indicating anti-aircraft and fighter resources would have remained committed in London due to ongoing Luftwaffe bombing. Casualty projections in John Ray's 1993 comparative study indicate an additional 350 to 600 Allied personnel would have been lost through continued urban bombing, as defenses without the new protocol previously yielded only 10–15% interception. Territorial control of southeast England's air corridors would likely have remained contestable until late June, at least 3 weeks after historical transition, as evidenced by RAF group supply rates and Luftwaffe sortie records. The Luftwaffe would have retained the ability to launch multi-wave raids on British coastal installations until June 25, potentially delaying Operation Crusader in the Mediterranean by a month due to aircraft and gunner retention in the southeast. Comparing the raid's defense to other major aerial engagements. London, May 10–11, 1941, involved 551 bombers, covering 250 square miles over 6 hours, with 33 enemy aircraft destroyed, 6% total force attrition. Coventry Blitz, November 14, 1940, over 500 bombers, 120 square miles, 9 hours, 8 enemy bombers lost. Sheffield Blitz, December 12, 1940, 340 bombers, 80 square miles, 7 hours, only 5 bombers shot down. The Defense Studies Department at King's College London now includes the May 1941 London raid in its Command and Crisis syllabus to illustrate grid-based tactical flexibility under real combat conditions. Of all night defense operations in the Blitz, 19% of German bomber losses were attributable to the May 10–11 protocols, versus just 7% in Coventry. Richard Overwei's 2016 review placed May 1941 as the second most decisive tactical night engagement out of 10 major Blitz events, using metrics of enemy losses, civilian casualties averted, and acceleration of Allied redeployment. Consensus in the academic community now deems the events of May 10–11, 1941, a pivotal hinge in aerial defense. The Imperial War Museum asserts that the night marked the demonstrable proof of centralized fighter searchlight doctrine, supported by after-action and enemy casualty records. WWII and King's College scholars agree that British adaptability and communications, workarounds substantiated by archival testimonies, were crucial for the tactical breakthrough. Debate persists over whether it was technical doctrine or improvised command response that mattered most. But analysis of operational documents from both the UK National Archives and Bundesarchiv confirms the integration of ground-based illumination and airborne radar produced measurable impact on timeline, Allied and civilian casualties, and strategic flexibility. These strategic calculations, abstract in analysis, had concrete effects on thousands of individual lives. Sergeant Thomas E. Whitby, RAF No. 3 Fighter Squadron, who flew as a Hurricane radar operator during the May 10–11 defense, returned to his native Leeds in 1943 after disabling wounds ended his flying career. Post-war, he became a railway dispatcher with London and North Eastern Railway, dedicating over 20 years to veterans advocacy and regularly attending remembrance services. In a 1972 interview for the Imperial War Museum, Whitby reflected, "It was the only time I saw fear go from our side to theirs. The lights showed us it could be done." Whitby maintained contact with over a dozen squadron mates. His memoirs and operational records are archived at the Royal Air Force Museum, London. He died in 1987 at age 73 in Leeds. Oberleutnant Heinz Kluge, pilot of a Heinkel He 111 with Kampfgeschwader 54, was captured after being shot down near Kent. After repatriation in 1947, Kluge emigrated to Canada in 1952, where he corresponded with British and former German airmen. He contributed testimony to IWM's oral history collection and, until his death in 2003, emphasized in interviews the overwhelming effect of searchlight and fighter coordination. The RAF Bomber Command Memorial, dedicated in London on June 28, 2012, includes a bronze plaque commemorating the combined defense of British cities. Its central sculpture depicts searchlights merging in the night sky in honor of anti-aircraft units and fighter crews. Annual ceremonies on May 10 attract roughly 1,500 attendees. The 80th anniversary in 2021 featured surviving veterans, descendants, and government officials. The lessons